Hello, everyone. I'm again back with another amazing podcast with one of the speakers I have today. Her name is Maria Shahid. She's a strategic communication expert. She's a storyteller. She's the author of a book, and she founded a Women South Asia. I've been following her content on LinkedIn for quite a long time, and really, I'm really impressed with the content. Thank you so much, Maria, for being a part of my show. I want you to introduce my audience who you are and tell us about your experience so that we can start the podcast formally. So, Maria, the mic is yours now.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you for inviting me. So, as you said, I've been professionally working in strategic communications and marketing for it'll be 10 years next year. And yes, I published my book, Spiritual and Strategic Guide to Confidence, this year.
Wow.
And my focus professionally has been in the field of communications and marketing. I've worked in a diverse sectors, so of the international development sector, academic sectors, and I've also done consulting work for multiple of industries. So it's quite varied. It's not been just one particular industry. And I'm really passionate about communication because I grew up as a global citizen around the world. And as I grew up, I realized how important it was for people to be able to communicate with each other and how often miscommunication creates misunderstandings between cultures, between people. And after working almost 10 years in the professional field, there's this conception that you have to work hard and it's built on talent. But if nobody can understand the value that you bring, and if you cannot communicate that effectively, actually your hard work and your talent often gets sidelined. So I'm really passionate about sharing that with others. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I think you're right. Communication is very important. I've worked in different software houses in different tech companies, and I realized whenever there is going to be a meeting where we see a lot of developers, a lot of technical people in Pakistan, unfortunately, they do lack communication part, and I think it's high time we help those folks to learn this art because this is a global village now, so you interact with different people.
Yes.
Communication is very important. If you are good with your technical stuff, but you can't communicate, you are multiplied by zero. So spot on. Communication is very important. Perfect. Okay, so you mentioned that you lived in different countries and regions. So which place shaped your worldwide view the most and why?
That's a very interesting question, actually. I think the place that really shaped me and really expanded my mind was West Africa,
Okay.
country named Niger. So it's a country next to, above Nigeria. Everybody knows Nigeria. Not so many people know Niger. And it is a Muslim country, actually. So the
Wow.
population is Muslim. It has a lot of tribal culture. But what really, caught my attention as a young woman as I was growing up there was just all of the stereotypes I had heard about Africa, all of the misinformation, and then living there, growing up there, and seeing the truth myself. I think it really expanded my worldview as a Pakistani, as a global citizen, and I think just the love, just the vibrancy of the people there, despite living in difficult conditions. It's a country, actually, most people won't know, it's very rich in natural resources like uranium, which is actually used in nuclear weapons.
Right.
And I think when I saw what was going on there, just like politically, even as a young girl, I realized that there's always something beneath the surface, and to not always base your assumptions on whether it's a country or a person, even. Never judge any country, never judge a person based on this. And that's something I've really carried through in my life.
Wow. Very nice. So I see on your LinkedIn your background is mostly in politics and international relations. So how did you end up leading your journey in terms of storytelling and communication?
Yeah, I think politics is storytelling if people look at it
It is.
closely. Yes. Politicians tell great stories, and whoever story you buy at the moment, people vote for. I think it just reinforced, communication is an essential part of politics. So whether you're doing policy making, again, communication came in and it informed my worldview. It allowed me to look at the world deeper at the socioeconomic level, the small, subtle nuances, right, that many people miss. So that understanding of the political background, the social background, when you are creating posts for a country like Pakistan or when you're creating posts for a global audience. For example, my LinkedIn has a very mixed audience. So I have Pakistanis, I have Americans, Africans in my own network, and also the people who are following me on different platforms. So that requires a very different skill set to connect with people and make sense to people who all have different understanding and different mentalities. So I think in that way, it helped my work to kind of bring context, having that understanding of a little bit of politics and socioeconomics.
That's really interesting. And while you were talking, I have another question, a follow-up question. So you said that you have different audience on LinkedIn from different parts of the world, and you want to make sure that you create content which everyone can understand. So how do you make sure that the diverse audience you have on LinkedIn, uh, they're going to understand the content which you're creating? Because you are basically from Pakistan, but you travel around the globe. So how do you make sure that the content is being understood by all the audience which you have on LinkedIn?
I think the first thing you need to know about in communication and something you have to accept as you gain experience is that you will be misunderstood because
Yeah.
everyone is coming. It is impossible to be understood by everyone. Everyone is coming up with a different mindset, a different exposure to the world. So when I write a post, my main aim is to make it as simple as possible. So even if somebody's not very educated, they can understand the basics of it, or not just educated, exposure. Maybe they don't have as much exposure as me or understanding of something as me that I would. So they can at least understand, the basic gist of it. Then the rest, I leave it up to God because, you cannot control people's reactions and every culture has a different reaction. For example, in terms of, I'll give an example of Pakistan. Pakistanis are still getting exposed to the world. They're still learning, they're still exploring. And so a lot of Pakistanis kind of base their understanding on stereotypes. For example, if you don't have exposure, you've seen something on TV, you've seen something on social media. So you assume, oh, this person looks like this. So this person must be like this and this and this. So I get a lot of, I see the comments. Sometimes people are confused, but I don't take it personally because I understand that they're coming from a different exposure. But my focus is always that, the one of the reasons I actually started becoming more active was because I really, really saw the gap. And, I thought we're really losing potential here. And I wanted to help expand the mindset of people.
Got it. I think that's right. And you're absolutely right that everyone has their own experience and their own lens of looking at the world. So you cannot fulfill every single person, but it's good that you're trying and making sure that they understand your content. So that's the main idea. I think at the end of the day, it's all about the intent you have, and rest is up to the God. So spot on. Okay, perfect. So when did you realize first that storytelling isn't just a skill for you, but something that defines how you see the world?
I think I really began to understand that concept actually when I moved to Pakistan, funnily enough, because when people did not have the exposure that I did, I realized that they were misunderstanding. They couldn't understand some of the ideas and concepts. And in my effort to understand, okay, how can I make it relatable? How can I make it that they see a different perspective? In strategic communications, you have two different types of communication. So not communications, but elements. So there's persuasive communication there's influential communication, different elements. I realized that I have to kind of really not dumb down, but simplify ideas, really simplify ideas and speak the local language in some ways. Because I can be speaking to you about, international relations and the theory of idealism, and I could be saying something perfectly correct. But if you do not have a basic understanding of it, you will not understand it. It doesn't make you dumb, it doesn't make you stupid, but it just means you don't have exposure to it. You don't have a baseline to work off of. So that's when it really clicked, and that storytelling kind of makes it a little bit easier. It has a bit of a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it helps people to connect better instead of me pushing my ideas onto people and saying, no, 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 this is wrong, this is incorrect, or maybe look at it this way. Maybe look at, like, open your heart a little bit. Instead of telling people, instead of forcing, using force, use the path of least resistance in some ways to kind of allow people to see and make up their own mind.
Wow, I love your answers, and they're very deep, and I'm enjoying those answers. Very nice. So I think it's all about getting out of the comfort zone and making sure that people understand what message you are trying to convey, and why are you doing that. So spot on. So what early career challenge pushed you out of your comfort zone and shaped your path?
Many challenges, but the one thing that comes to my mind was I was a very shy young woman, and
Okay.
however, I was always I was shy, but when it came to things that I was passionate about, whether it was women's rights, or trying to connect cultures together, or trying to educate people, as I grew up in multiple parts of the world about Pakistan, but then also as I became a global citizen, because I was growing up everywhere, um, about other people, about other cultures like Africa. So coming to Pakistan and telling people about Africa and how beautiful it is and how there's so much value there. I was always passionate. I was able to speak up very confidently. So I remember once I had a boss in one of my first jobs, and he told me, Maria, you're gonna go get me 50 business cards. And I was like, no. Inside, I was dying. I was like, is he crazy? I cannot speak. Like, I cannot go all to all these people. And I was one of the youngest in the office at the time. And he said, no, this is your challenge, to get me 50 business cards, and we need to network. And I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? So I think that challenge, I wasn't able to get 50. I think I was able to get like 35, 30, 35. But
Not bad.
I went up and I introduced myself, and I was nervous, but I wanted to do a good job. You want to push yourself. So I think the fact that I began early, uh, that kind of helped me push out of my comfort zone, and and go and learn how to introduce myself and how to get over the awkwardness that we all feel when we're talking to people.
Fear of being judged, right?
Yeah, fear of being judged, fear of saying maybe something incorrect. Many we all have that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. All right, perfect. So you're known for making complex ideas feel simple and emotional. How did you develop that craft?
That's a secret.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my secret. But I think it's about human psychology. It's about understanding human psychology and strategic communications and marketing. So marketing and communications is essentially all about human psychology. We humans like to think we're very rational, we're
Mm-hmm.
very logical, but we are not. We are social and emotional animals at the core. And depending on what part of the world you are at, so for example, in Pakistan, people connect more emotionally versus more
Yep.
intellectually. So
Correct.
when I am creating something, or when I am writing something, which I hope to target towards the Pakistani audience more, than maybe my international audience. I go from the heart. And when I am trying to communicate or convey something broadly to more my international audience, I bring in a bit more of the intellectualization. But having said that, overall, having lived across different continents, so Africa, Asia, Europe, they're, the giants, people still are very emotional, even if they appear to be very intellectual. And that's not a bad thing. It's who we are as human beings.
Interesting. I like this way of looking at this particular thing. So you're right, we humans are emotional, and sometimes we use our emotional thinking rather than logical thinking. And you're absolutely right. This is not a wrong or right thing. It's just like we're humans, we have emotions, and we are supposed to have that emotions show to the world. Very nice. Okay, perfect. So let's talk about some leadership aspect of your journey. So after leading communication teams and coaching executives, how would you describe your leadership philosophy?
Well, I would say what I have learned in my experience of leading and being led is that today what people are seeking is a balance between authority and heart-led leadership. So
Okay.
having worked under people who prefer more authoritative styles and having worked with people who are firm but more heart led. I personally prefer a more firm and heart led approach versus excessive authoritarianism. As a leader, especially the previous generation, and even within our generation, millennials and then Gen Z, there's this pressure to always appear very firm, very serious, kind of almost demean the people below you a little bit to, maintain that order, a little slightly militaristic. But in the long run, I noticed that only drives the people away from you. It drives the people below you. It leads them to resent you, and it doesn't inspire them. What inspires, at least in my experiences, where they see a leader who has firm boundaries, who has a vision and isn't willing to budge from it, can be demanding at times, but someone who still treats people as human beings. And that can only be if you model it. People don't do what the leaders, how our parents tell us, don't do this, don't do that. But the truth is, we actually end up doing what our parents are doing. So if your parents are like, don't spend so much money, but if you see your parents spending money and buying things, you psychologically you go, whatever, I'm going to spend money. They're spending money. Or if your dad smoked and then he tells you, don't smoke, don't be like me, but then you see him. So the same thing, if you see a leader and they're speaking about compassion and emotional intelligence, and in reality, that's not who they are, the people around them will learn, no, be aggressive, be, you know, be like that, be overly firm, try to push people down, and that's what will happen. So it's something you model. And I think no one is perfect, no leader is perfect. That's a delusion. Everybody has
Correct.
their quirks, everyone has their things, but I think there is a fine line. There is a fine line between being firm, knowing what you want, but at the same time being respectful and providing basic respect.
Amazing. I think you're spot on. For a good leader to be, I think you need to be a good human being at first, because at the end of the day, it's not B2B connection, it's not B2C, it's a human to human connection first, right? Even when you're talking to your customers or your internal
Yeah.
stakeholders. And you're
And you would
right.
know
I
that
also learned,
customer. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sure. I'd love to hear your point
yeah,
on that.
I'm gonna talk about that. So when I became a leader, the very first challenge. So I'm a kind of person who loves to deal people with love, courtesy, and I don't want to be very strict with people most of the times. But I realized as a leader, sometimes when you're working in a corporate culture, even when not even in a corporate culture, as a leader, you should show both sides to your peers, because if
Mm.
you don't, and then you change to a different version of yourself, people will like, this person is so rude. I was expecting this. So I had I have a lot of examples which I can share with you. But I think as a leader, you should show both sides. Sometimes you need to be very firm, and sometimes you need to be polite. It's a mix and match. It's like I see this as parenting, where
Mm,
there are going to be ups and downs, and you have to make sure that you're getting things done. But at the end of the day, it's very important for you to understand that we are humans. We have emotions. No matter which setting we are in, at the end of the day, we want to be treated with love. And
yes.
but you're right. It should be a mix and match of both sides of nature. Perfect. Great. So, what leadership insight changed the way you work with people?
I think for me personally, would be learning, the world treats women and men very differently. And,
Correct.
you can't shy away from it. When, as a woman, you are firm, people do not like it. People who are respectful, they understand it because it's just if you're a leader, you have to have certain boundaries. You have to have a level of leadership and a level of, I would not say distance, but a boundary, like in Urdu we say ek had hoti hai, a line. And I think in my experience, not just in Pakistan, but also in Thailand, also in Vietnam, also in Rome, is this that it is very difficult for people, men and women, to accept female leadership, especially when women put boundaries. They find it, so if they find a man a bit rude, they find it overly rude because women are expected to be always accommodating, always caring. And that is a part of being a woman. And I think that's a
Yeah.
strength, not a weakness.
Yeah.
So for me, as I have grown in my leadership journey, I think it's just, learning to assert my boundaries as a woman, learning to, at least from my side, have that level of respect. You cannot control other people's demeanors and reactions. And I think that's something many women who are entering leadership or who have led in some way or form, because it's not always about titles. You can have a title of a CEO or a manager or whatever title is there. But oftentimes, if you notice, sometimes the person who doesn't have the title is often the informal leader. People follow them. They want to mimic the way they dress. They want to mimic the way they speak. And that's also leadership. It's influence.
Influence. Yeah.
So I think boundaries and learning how to use your influence in a positive manner.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense. Perfectly makes sense. All right. So I see you have coached many executives. What leadership gap do you see most often?
Yes, I did about 2 years back. I did all begin to offer executive coaching services via LinkedIn. And it was actually because I saw so much gap in the leadership here. And I thought, and I would always be wherever I was in the spaces I was working, in the organizations where I was working. I was very shocked actually because I was I couldn't believe that they did not have the communication skills that I would expect or I would want in a leader. And then I realized, well, they're not hired for that. A CEO is hired for setting a vision. So they may not have communication skills. But the landscape has changed. It's not just leaders who need communication skills. Everybody needs communication skills today. Truly, if you want to optimize yourself, you want to grow, everything, it all begins with communication and at the highest levels. So whether it's the government, how people would imagine, or the biggest organizations, the biggest leaders, it's all communication, it's all signaling. They Leaders, the highest level, they're not arguing and being petty like, how mid management is often at times. They're signaling to each other. And if required to be petty, then they will be. And that's all strategic communication. So when I saw that the CEOs, the head of departments here were so truly, I mean, honestly behind from my standards, and I was guiding them and I was telling them how to speak and how to sit and how to articulate themselves. When I saw that gap and I said, okay, you know what, this is something I'm passionate about. I love to teach, I love to learn myself and share that. So again, I noticed that most people don't have, in order to be a good communicator, in general, to be a better human being, is called self awareness.
Correct.
Being aware of your own emotions, being aware of how you're feeling. If you're feeling angry, maybe taking a pause, accepting that you're angry, but taking a pause before responding. You react, you want to respond, not react. So if somebody comes up to me and says, Mario, you're just a pretty face, you don't know what you're talking about, I'll be like, that is your
Mhm.
opinion. I disagree. Instead of saying, how could you say this to me? And that's reaction. That's reactionary.
Flight and fright mode, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So that really plays a big role and what people want. Gen Z and millennials, they don't want that old type of leadership. They want more authentic communication. They want their leaders to be authentic at the same time firm. So it's a balance, right? It's
Yep.
impossible. Some people will think you're too authoritative at times. Some people will think you're too friendly. But what that balance looks like for everyone will be different. So for you, it'll be different as a man. For me, it'll be different as a woman, or whatever role you're in. But I think I realize that mostly, and I don't want to make it gender specific, but men in Pakistan are very they don't have much self awareness. They have. I know I'm not gonna get. It's a little sensitive to say this, but it's the truth.
You're good. You're good.
They have, sadly, but I don't say this to shame. I say this because I see potential in Pakistani men. I see potential, and when you see potential in someone and you don't criticize people you don't care about. You bring criticism when you care about, and you say, you can do better. You can improve yourself. You can create such a better impact. So if you always live in your ego, which is sadly encouraged, you don't become self-aware, right? Nobody tells you. You are the man. You can have a tantrum. You don't realize you look like a little boy. You're supposed to be the head of department or a CEO, but you're acting like a little boy. And that always comes from self awareness. And they don't like it when women say that. And they don't like it when women who look a certain way say that. It hurts. I understand. But we all have to be honest. I think there's a lot of potential for both men and women in Pakistan. And I think I bring a unique lens because I am a Pakistani who happens to be a global citizen. I'm not just an American Pakistani or a British Pakistani. I'm a Pakistani who happened to be blessed to live in so many different parts of the world. So I think self awareness, if I had to say one thing, I would just say
Mm.
for both men and women, just pause and just observe yourself a little bit. And you will see the real improvement.
I love this conversation. I wish कि ये दो
I
तीन
hope
घंटे
I
का
don't get in
podcast I love.
trouble. Sometimes I get in
No,
trouble.
not at all. I love this aspect, and I like the way you're putting it for my audience. And I think being genuine and honest is the main part I've tried these podcasts. So you're not in trouble. And in fact, I think people should see this perspective too. And I want to add on to whatever you said. So you're right. This is a problem with Pakistani leader because I've worked with Pakistani CEOs and I worked with US-based CEOs too. There's a concept which we call state culture, right? For Pakistan, there's a term called state culture for Pakistani leaders, and they have a different way of treating people. On the other hand, if you are working with the CEO which is, I mean, from other part of the world, they have a different upbringing and they treat people differently. And one thing I realized, even so, I do host HR meetups every month in different co-working spaces in Islamabad. And last meetup which I hosted was HR and Gen Z's problem, and how hiring is has become a nightmare these days when it comes to hiring Gen Zs, right? And I did a small activity in that session, and I asked few of the Gen Zs, "Do you know what is the vision of the CEO of your company?" And they started telling
I paused this.
disconnected. Can you hear me now? I can't hear you. I can see you're speaking, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I'm sorry. I got disconnected in the middle.
That's all right.
Okay, so I was telling you that. So I asked them about the vision of the CEO, and they started explaining me about the business strategy. No, I was like, no, I need to understand the business. Oh, sorry, the vision of your CEO, and they had no clue. So I think as a leader, it's also very important for us to make sure that every single individual sitting in the company should understand the vision. And when they understand the vision and the vision is inculcated in their I would say KPI, or maybe in their brain, the way they look at things and the way they work for the company is going to be very different. Unfortunately, we don't work on the vision part.
Yeah. I
So
think, yeah. I
go ahead.
agree. I
Go ahead.
think
Go ahead.
there is some people have the operations and some people have the vision. I think the CEO, or whether it's the CEO, the head of the department, the manager, whoever is the leader in the space, they have to be able to paint a picture of what you're working towards and able to energize people, right? Because you have to give people incentive. Money is there, fine. That's basics. People are working because of money majority of the time. Some people are doing jobs because they were lucky to find a job in something that they need money, but also because they really like that particular role. But that's not always true for most people. They're there because they have to earn a living, and not everyone is privileged to be able to take time off or explore. They have pressures. So when you as a leader give people something to look forward to and something that adds back to them, it's not just enough. I think people have become very smart. They're realizing the truth on many things, and they don't just want money, they also want respect, and they also want companies and leaders to invest in them a little bit, you know, help them grow. They want to explore and do things. It's not just I just want to have a job. Somebody like, for example, you've begun your podcast, you have an interest. So there's more to life than just 9 to 5 or whatever the timings. I People want this, and I think our generation, millennials definitely, and Gen Z, and I think millennials are realizing it. I think Gen Z, they have an advantage in the sense they already know that with social media you can have so many different careers, you can have a job, and you can do something and make money with something you care about and passionate about. And then many of them are not even, they're leaving jobs early. But I think like our generation, millennials or zillennials, people who are in the middle, they're realizing, okay, I also want that, I want to do that. And I think for me that was one of the reasons why I also took time. I only took small projects instead of taking on the big role, so I could write my book, so I could also launch, my coaching services. Because if I was just at an organization for 7, so much of your attention goes. It's so hard to manage everything. And at that time, it was such a scary decision. But now that I look back at it, I think it paid off, and it's paying off. So yeah, people want more, and there is more. There is
There
more
is
available.
more. I do have another example to share here since we're talking about leadership. So when I started doing one-on-ones with my team members, and I did a small, again, I do a lot of experiments to understand the response, and then if response is good, then I keep on doing that. So during one-on-one, I talked about few of the KPIs in the first few minutes, and then I asked that person that, what is your inspiration in life and what do you want to do outside motive? And then that person started telling me about his passions and what he want to become. And the more I dig deep, the more I understand that this person wants to be in a certain direction. And I started giving him small milestones to achieve to that particular goal. And the feedback I got was that from a different person, that today why that person liked that one-on-one is because someone finally talked about thing other than work. Someone talked about grooming of that particular individual. And then when after receiving that feedback, I started this drill with every single person in my team. and the results were amazing. So you're right. Sometimes we are we involve ourselves too much in the KPIs and corporate world that we tend to forget that there's so much more other than 9 to 5 stuff, and we should talk about that. So I agree with you. At the end of the day, we are humans. We want to grow, we want to survive, and we want to learn new skills. So as a leader, it's high time we should work on that part. On that part.
Exactly.
Perfect. So, what inspired you to start Women South Asia, and what moment made you realize its importance?
I'm a woman. I'm a girl. I grew up in this world being a girl. I have walked the streets in this world as a 5-year-old, 15-year-old, 25-year-old, 30-year-old woman in different parts of the world. And street harassment is a reality for every single woman. And we don't deserve it. And it has nothing to do with your clothing. And it has, it happens to children, little girls at the age of 3, 10, 15, 25. It's for me, it was natural. It's something so part of me. It's a small digital advocacy platform. I really hope, inshallah, that I can expand it in more
Inshallah.
grassroots and really get to work with women who have the least amount. I hope I am in that position one day. But it began as a self form of self expression and just recognizing that it's happening to women all over the world. I was working at a place, at an organization. There were women from all over the world, and we all experienced Pakistanis, Thai, Indian, Nepali, American. And I was like, why are we not talking about this? Why are we not speaking about this? Why are we not letting this place know that we are experiencing this and we want something to happen? We want more safety. We want to feel more comfortable as women as we're walking around. We want the men to be trained and given orientation that there's a decorum. You know, these topics are very sensitive, but if you don't talk about it, if you like suppress something, it becomes even more ugly. It becomes more pressurized. We have to grow up and we have to talk about it and we have to find a solution.
100%.
So that's why I started it. And then at first, I was doing interviews of different girls from different parts of the world and getting their perspective on being a woman. And then as I traveled and as I evolved and as I've grown as a woman, I started thinking, okay, now I can do like a workshop, a small workshop. And then I came to Pakistan, and then I started to realize that, even the privileged women here, so middle class, upper middle class, elite, right? Even they're not walking. I used to walk around. I was based in Lahore for a bit, and I used to walk the street and I would go get my coffee. And my female colleagues are like, "You're just walking by yourself?" And I'd be like, yes, it's 2 minutes away. I'm just going to go. I like to walk. I just like to see around and then walk and get my morning coffee and then go back to office. For me, it was like normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, and I don't want to single out Pakistan because it happens everywhere. Sadly, in some countries more intense. Pakistan is more intense because
Okay.
it's it's a lot. You can feel a lot of eyes on you as a woman, but it also happens when you're in Thailand. It's also happened to me as a young girl when I was growing up in Rome, Italy. So it
Okay.
happens. Over here, it's more. It's just intense to, like, let's say, if 80%, it's over here, it's 80% plus, depending on the area. So just a walk, and now it's a right to be able to walk and feel the breeze. So simple, right? And just get your
Yeah.
coffee without having comments, without being stared too much in an aggressive way. Look, women are beautiful and it's very normal. You will look, but there's a limit, there's a boundary, there's a way to be respectful to someone. And it isn't about male versus female, it's about respect. It's simply about looking at a human being as this is a
As a
human.
human. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. So I think that's why. And different cultures, people react differently to these things. But I think sometimes, like I always say, like I watched it in this movie, this lady said it, the truth is neither cold or hot. It has no temperature. It's the truth.
I think you are absolutely right. So I do respect women in my workplace. So I was talking to one of my colleagues the other day, and I was like, the reason why I respect you because you're not just doing a job. You're taking care of your kids. You're taking care of your husband. You're taking care of your house, and at the same time, you're doing this job. On the other hand, me as a man, I'm just doing this job, nothing else, right? So I think the women in work deserves to be treated in a most polite way because they're not just doing the job, they're also feeding their families, they're also taking care of their husbands and their children. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. So you're absolutely right, and I think it's high time we should talk about these topics because the more we express, the more it's going to be difficult to educate people on this particular topic. So spot on, and I'm really glad that you're talking about this in my platform, and kudos to you on this. So let's talk about some fun questions because we already recorded this podcast for 46 minutes and I'm enjoying this conversation. I wish we can have it for more than 1 hour, but maybe we can connect some other time and have some conversation around other topics. So let's talk about some fun questions. So if you could have dinner with any storyteller or leader in the world, who would it be and why?
One of my biggest inspirations is Muhtara Mai. She
Okay.
is a woman I really, really respect. She has inspired me so much. I have never met her. I heard of her story at the time I was in some other country. I was a young woman and I heard, and I remember going to my father and saying, "Did this really happen in our country?" And I saw him kind of look uncomfortable and kind of, he said, "Yeah, there's this culture, there's certain areas that have this kind of culture where they make decisions." And I was so, the fact that she was expected to maybe die of shame and to not speak up, but the people who hurt her, I cannot imagine as a woman. And the courage it takes in a culture full of shame to speak. I think she hasn't every time. So I remember I printed a picture of her. I was like 17, 18. I printed a picture of her, and anytime I would feel, you know, my life is so bad and my parents are not understanding me and why is this happening? I would just, or I would feel like I am finding certain challenges because of, as a woman, I would just look at her picture and go, what would Muhtara Mai do? What would Muhtara Mai do? And I think she's alive, and I hope maybe one day I want to meet her and I want to thank her for inspiring me so much, because the way she spoke her truth in our country, in a culture, she's not coming from a privileged class. She's coming from, you know, a very regular social class. To me, that's a woman that is courageous, beautiful, brave. So yes, I would want to meet her.
Nice. What's one completely random skill you wish you instantly had?
I wish I was good at finances more. It's a very important skill. I wish I'd learned about it earlier. I'm learning about it now. I'm learning about stocks.
Okay.
I'm trying to learn about these things. I wish they taught us that in school. I wish, because I think they didn't teach us anything we actually needed.
Correct.
And now we have to relearn everything and understand. I wish I had that. And maybe the ability to like disappear. That's
Okay.
just like not be seen. Sometimes I wish I could just be invisible and just walk around and not be seen or
Judged.
bothered. Yeah,
So
just like
I
I.
have a gift for you. So you can use my virtual reality headset and be in a different world where no one can see you. They can see you through your avatar. So yeah, you can be more expressive and enjoy the conversation. Okay, perfect. So if your life had a soundtrack, which song would play during your most creative moments?
I love 50 Cent. He's a rapper.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
And I love one of his songs. Like, what was it? Many Men. Many Men is a song. Many Men. So I think I would
Okay.
play that. His album, his Get Rich or Die Trying album. I like the songs
Okay.
there. I find them. I think I would like that. I want something, hardcore rapper.
All right, last fun question, and then we'll call it a day. So, what's one guilty pleasure that helps you recharge after a heavy communication day?
Guilty pleasure. Chocolate lava cake. Sitting alone by myself. Eating chocolate lava cake.
Oh, all
Just
right. All right.
sitting in bed, eating chocolate lava, not sharing it with anybody, ordering it by myself, just eating it. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Nice, nice, nice. Thank you so much, Maria, for coming into my show. And I thoroughly enjoyed the entire conversation. Inshallah, I'll invite you in future in my other podcast too, because I genuinely love the conversation. And inshallah, we'll stay in touch and we'll do more podcasts like this in future. Do you want to say anything to my audience or maybe a message to my audience at the end of the podcast?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me, and I wish you best of luck with your podcast, and I hope it grows. Um,
Inshallah.
and my only message would be, I think in my book, so as I published my book, Spiritual and Strategic Guide to Confidence, and I would just encourage people to find a balance in life between their spirit and their mind. So, we use the mind to be strategic, and we have our soul and our heart. And to not forget their heart, to not forget their soul in a world that tries to defeat us often. And we all go through our things, everyone does. Just protect your spirit and keep dreaming big. It's possible for you if you believe it, wherever you come from, it's possible. And it's a lie that it's not. When we see people, maybe you see people online or you see people, you think, oh no, this person speaks like this, looks like this. No. If you put the work for it, you deserve it. If you work for it, you deserve it. It doesn't matter what you look like, what your color is, what your gender is, anything. Your accent doesn't matter. If it's in your heart, go for it. Don't care about other people.
Be genuine.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you.
Inshallah, I will see you soon. Thank you so much, my audience, for watching this podcast, and I'll see you soon.